Hello everyone. Welcome to SecureKloud's webinar on global cloud security and compliance trends, what to expect in 2022. Before we get into the presentation, let me quickly walk you through on what we can expect from today's session. So today's agenda is housekeeping and what to expect, trends on cloud security and compliance, the presentation, followed by panel discussion, global cloud security and compliance trends. It doesn't end there. After that, there's a post-event networking session. So this webinar is being recorded. To avoid any background noise, your microphone and webcams are turned off. If you have any questions, you can chat them in the chat box, and it will be answered only at the end of the panel discussion. So today we have Mr. Raj Srinivasaraghavan, CTO at SecureKloud Technologies. With 25 plus years of experience, Raj has delved deeper into the world of cloud over these years, addressing factors related to cloud space and key customer security. In today's session, he's going to expound the latest cloud security trends, which is much needed as we step further into 2022. Also, we have Mr. Subramanyam Gorti, who is the founder and CEO at Inti Consulting Services, which is based out of Mumbai and that specializes in cybersecurity services, products, training, apart from IT consulting. As you all can see, that he is a great leader who has an accomplished trend in the IT leadership landscape for almost 3 decades. He and his team of experts at Inti Consulting Business have been instrumental in shaping IT service management in helping businesses to make better decisions. Also, we have in our midst Mr. Srinivas Mahankali, who has put 3 decades of industry experience in architecting and managing business initiatives in advanced technologies like blockchain, cloud computing, AI, and IoT. Apart from the fact that he is a lifelong learner and an avid reader, he has authored 15 books in blockchain and other innovative technologies. You can see his level of enthusiasm about smart cities and the balance which the disruptive technologies offer for a sustainable environment and a healthy lifestyle in his recent publication, Blockchain and Smart Cities, a lesson that's learned from Singapore, which is the world's smartest digital nation. Let's move on to the presentation. I'll hand it over to Mr. Raj.
Thank you, Raj. Thank you, Raj. Good evening, everyone. Welcome all to this webinar on global cloud security and compliance trends, right? What to expect in 2022. The reason we picked this topic is, we are at the crossroads of cloud, I would say the paradigm, right? When cloud started about 19 or so years back, right? Everybody thought, it's going to be not a paradigm, right? Because of a lot of issues to start with, and then when AWS and Azure and then GCP came online, it was a storm, right? It took over all of us, right? So after so much of acceptance, right? So where are we right now is in the security part of it, right? So a lot of people have adopted or taken up to cloud, but are we secure? Especially when new technologies are coming in like IoT, blockchain, and there's a lot of the cloud boundaries are pushed to the limit, literally and physically, right? Because we have edge computing coming in. So where are we right now? Is what this webinar is going to explore, right? So the agenda for today's talk is, we have split into these parts, right? First, we will talk about the top 9 cloud security concerns, that everybody has, globally, right? Because it's a global phenomenon. Once we go through this cloud security concerns, then we can look at the emerging practices that are going to address some of these concerns, right? In a holistic way. Once we touch upon those best practices, then we can go to the key security and compliance trends to watch that will further alleviate, these concerns, right, in the coming years. So in other words, this webinar is trying to give some, not only the issue addressing the telling the problems, but also giving some solutions. The attempt is to give some solutions to the problems that are being faced currently from the security standpoint, right, and compliance standpoint. How enterprise can prepare for 2022, that's going to be an interesting couple of slides that I've prepared, and then a case study, and then we'll talk about some of the activities that SecureKloud we are doing that they can offer best practices and best solutions for some of these security and compliance problems that we are facing, right? So why security, right? And especially the last 4 or 5 years, especially after the pandemic, right? We feel that, I mean, the Gartner again, they're a good study people. They study a lot of trends, and one of the important things that they've caught up at, these 3 statistics show that we are in the cusp of cloud security requirements, right? Where now people have bought into the cloud phenomenon, but whether they are safe, right? They are trying to spend on the risk management part of cloud. We can see it went from 0 to 6.4% in a matter of 3-4 years, right? Of their total cloud spend. And then 79% of the enterprises, they are now into the cloud, but they are not satisfied about the security and governance, especially for the data, right? The DLP process have picked up a lot. So how we are there is another important thing that we'll see in this, right? Why cloud security and governance especially is very important. And then the spending itself for cloud security has been slowly growing, in the last 3-4 years. And I think this year is going to hit it's one of the big plateaus, and then it's going to plateau for a long time, I think. And then it's going to probably, once we have a safe zone, it might come down. But I think it's going to take a long time because of the advent of new technologies and the enterprise of people who want to hack into our systems, right? So these two are going to be fighting against each other, and then we are going to win. That's the idea, right? So with that, what are the top 9 cloud security concerns, right? So primarily, one of the important findings that that was published last year was 62 or 65% of the of the cloud security issues stem from misconfigurations, right? And it could be misconfiguration at the infrastructure level, security groups or security concerns or NACLs. It could be at the application level. For example, if an application is deployed at the Kubernetes level, and let's say there's a key that is exposed in the etcd files, there are so many factors where misconfiguration can be an issue, right? It could also be a simple thing as an IAM user having a lot of privileges. We don't even go with the least privileges for some of these activities that a user has to perform, and some of the root keys are still exposed and people can get to it. So there are a lot of reasons misconfiguration can be a problem, right? We can touch on all that as we go along. And then comes the identity issue, right? We see that there's a lot of ways multiple identities can come into a particular enterprise. And it could be their own users. There could be users from another enterprise to a federation or a single sign-on process. It could be their own users from an Active Directory or a shared directory from another location, right? So there's a lot of ways identity has to be controlled, because users are going to be one who are using the enterprise data and applications and systems. So users have to be controlled in a way that somebody cannot piggyback into their identity and then cause havoc into the system. So that is an important piece. And this is for any cloud, right? Not just public cloud, but also private cloud. So rising internal security threats, right? So here, what another important interesting statistic is that the threats that are normally coming in, not only from external sources, but also internally, right? Internally, in some cases, it is very inadvertent, like people leave something, some backdoors open, some ports open, some processes running without secure certificates that can be, plugged in by another user and have an opening to the systems, a backdoor entry into the systems. And there could be real, genuine attempts internally also. That there are a lot of activities that are happening internally. Another concern, how to basically secure your systems internally, right? And the fourth item is the compromise of enterprise networks due to improper edge security, right? So edge security might look new for some folks, but it has really picked up a lot in the last couple of years, especially the last year, 2021. This is because of almost two reasons. One is the advent of new technologies like IoT and blockchain, right? Because what happens is when you have edges that needs to be secured, edges that needs to be part of the networks, because decentralization is the key, and edge and perimeter, decentralization helps that. Because if you want to be closer to the action, like for example, if you want your IoT device or your mobile device or even your blockchain node closer to the action, you have to segregate it from your central resources of your enterprise, because that's when you can reach 200 odd servers in AWS that are deployed in the edge cities, right? For example, people who are closer to those cities can access them real fast. And definitely leading from there, to the fifth item is the device that are going to plug in into these edge locations, right? It could be an IoT device or a laptop or a desktop or even a mobile device. So the mobile device can cause havoc if not properly controlled. So especially the access control of it. So these are some of the major threats that we see, coming in not only this year and a few years from now, also, right? Some of the other, the non-zero security permission, right? This is an important aspect of cloud, right? Because what happens is, if you give not the least privileges to any user, trusting the user, let's say if there's a CIO, and if you have given all the permissions to the user, because he's going to be using it correctly, right? But what happens if his or her account gets hacked, or role gets hacked, or something gets hacked? So the user who gets all the data or all the access to all the important critical systems, because CIO probably will have access to even very, very secretive, parts of applications which you do not want a hacker to go to, right? So this is a very important feature. So the zero trust policy is getting traction here. And then the DevSecOps, right? So what helps DevSecOps is, the different aspects of application development is there. For example, you want to go through the different stages, but while deploying it, you want to have an organic security built in along with the application when it is bootstrapped, right? So you don't want to have security as an afterthought. So at every stage of deployment, you will use the right tools to have the DevSecOps done correctly, right? So security is built in right from the design stage, the coding stage, the development, the QA, and the publishing stage and the production. At every point, it could be the application security, it could be the testing of the application from a secure standpoint, it could be secure certificates, it could be the handling of the keys. So a lot of these have to be built in as part of the application development DevSecOps process itself. And if it is built in, what happens is there's a lot of flexibility that you don't have to test for security or address security later, right? Security threats due to lack of security, cloud native security tools. So what this item talks about is, this primarily cloud has moved from, stand-up web application development to container-based, a cluster deployment, right? So basically, if you see there's another statistic which I will show later, where in 2023, every enterprise, about 80% of the enterprise will have at least 2 container-based production applications in any cloud, right? So that is at the rate, I think 15% today. So it is going to take a phenomenal jump in the next 3 years. So we need tools to monitor those microservices, the APIs, to make sure that they are secure and nobody's keys and piggying back on them to get some very secure data, from those microservices, and especially the deployment of the clusters is going to be another key area to be monitored, especially with the proxies sitting before them, right? The last but not the least is the machine and the server identity related to security breaches. So where this leads is, once somebody is able to get to the service part of the services that are exposed, like for example, the service layer or the machine layer, that is the core where the enterprise is going to have their bread and butter living, right? So we don't want them the services to be hacked or the machine, because most of the architecture, the enterprise architecture is moving towards the services part. So with that, I'll move on. So this is the cost of the data breach, right? So what happens if any one of the previous things happen, right? So you're looking at least a $4 million cost. It could be a various costs. It could be cost due to the loss of revenue, due to the loss of application there available. It could be a loss of infrastructure, a lot of loss of hardware, loss of software licenses. So there's a lot of different costs. It could be even a small company taking to this breach, and they might have to shell out looking at this $4 million, a big cost for any enterprise. So, and like I said, 62% of the security threats happen due to misconfiguration. So we'll see more on that. So how these threats can be addressed is what this slide talks about. So what we have done is we have picked 4 important items that are going to address most of these 9 items, right, that we saw. So out of this, I would pick cloud security posture as the #1 requirement for any enterprise, small, medium, or large. Because what is cloud security posture management? Primarily, what this does is, there are 3 phases of any cloud deployment, right? For it could be an infrastructure deployment or application deployment or migration or infrastructure migration. There are 3 different parts to my experience, right? So what that is, you basically have deployed certain items before doing a security analysis, right? So those needs to be analyzed and assessed. So that is the past part of the cloud. And then the present part. The present part is there are a lot of things that are happening right now which you do not know whether it is good or bad in the cloud. Like whether so you need a constant monitoring and assessment. Whether currently I can sleep better knowing that basically everything is going okay. So the present condition of any cloud is what we would want to have assessed and not only monitored, it should also be addressed and remediated. So that is the second part. The third part is how the past and the present can help the future through basically analytic process, right? So basically if there is a pattern of failures or vulnerabilities or intrusions happening in our network, how that can be identified and basically addressed through prevention instead of doing it at the time of occurrence, right? Instead of addressing at the time of occurrence. So these are the 3 important things that cloud security posture management can help. There's a lot of softwares that are panned out. A lot of big companies are into this. Like I don't want to name the names, but there are a lot of big names. This is it's going to be a huge hit in the next 4 to 5 years, where people are going to adopt to this in a big way. Then comes the cloud native tools, which I briefly talked about. Again, the cloud native tools, because a lot of, like I said, in 2023, 80% of the enterprise, that is a huge number, are going to go to containers, right? Docker containers, clusters, could be Kubernetes clusters, native clusters, or it could be independent clusters, Kubernetes, or any equivalent clusters also, both in private and public cloud. So tools to address security of these clusters and deployments, and especially the containers themselves, are going to be the key going forward, right? So these 2, in a sense, will address a lot of these concerns, right? Comes the touch points of edge security and the device security, right? So what are these, right? Why edge and device are getting so much of traction right now? Because, like I said, when we look at now, cloud has become a distributed phenomenon rather than a centralized phenomenon because of the technologies and the needs of the use cases. Because if you look at the IoT and blockchain use cases, especially where it is going to directly address the citizens' concerns, like a lot of these citizens are going to be using an IoT device to basically, do some community, measuring of benchmarks of, community usage of power or electricity, or how the healthcare is handled at closer to a home, right, or a citizen. That's where closer to a cloud speed is needed at closer to a citizen's home, and that is where I think edge security is going to take a huge liking by a lot of. Similarly, when edge security has to be there, devices are going to be plugged into those edge perimeter locations where the device security have to be handled correctly, right? So these are some of the, I will talk more about the edge and device security as we go on. Okay, so security, talking more about security breaches, right? Like 2018 and 19, we have an older statistic that said 95% of the breaches, I was wrong in saying 65%, is 95%. The last 2 years back, I think it has come down to about 62, 65% now. 5 trillion have been lost, just in the about 3 years back. You can imagine how much it is right now, because due to the adoption of a lot of these practices, things have come down, but still a long way to go, right? So the CSPM practices helps in a lot of different ways, right? Because it central theme of any organization. It can address anything from the DevOps integration to the cloud security, from a hybrid multi-cloud container environment standpoints. So there's a lot of different, for example, the container tools are also now plugging into the CSPM model, right? Any container tool out there which is trying to address the security of the container, the vulnerability of the container, is also now to be plugged in as a CSPM tool, right? So it has to be CSPM compliant, right? So that is where the CSPM, that's why the CSPM has gotten a lot of importance. So let's look at, let's dive deep into what the CSPM process is, right? So like I said, there are 3 parts to it, right? Discovery and visibility is one part, where we discover what is happening right now. There is a cloud application or infrastructure project that we're doing, and we have to discover any misconfigurations to it, right? So you do a lot of vulnerability assessment. This tool can constantly do that for you, right? Initially, when you deployed this, you can look at where all the misconfiguration. It need not be a threat; it could be a warning also, right? So there's a lot of things that this can tell about your network, and also the policies and where all your sources of truths lie, right? So if there is multiple sources, it will say, okay, you have to make sure that your policies are single-mindedly done. So a lot of security threats can be avoided. So there's a lot of visibility you can get from these tools, right? The second is the present is what I like about this tool. So any misconfiguration related management and remediation can be done immediately, right? So even before the threat happens. So if let's say the threat is already there, it can remediate, right? Let's say you are hit by an attacker, and then you deployed the CSPM tool. Right now, it will immediately remediate it. So these are some of the important steps that an organization can take. And then the continuous threat detection. This is another important piece where once you are continuously monitoring your network and threats are detected at real time, right? It could be an internal threat, it could be an external threat, it could be a policy threat, it could be a security group threat, or it could be a firewall threat, or it could be a cloud security broken misconfiguration. So all of this can be done at real time through this continuous threat detection process. And most of this part is the biggest advantage, according to my experience, the security and compliance part of it, right? So most of the CSPM tools, if you look at it today, the first, they won't even look at the remediation right now. They are looking at whether they are HIPAA compliant, or PCI or PCI compliant, or SOC 2 compliant, or HITRUST compliant. So what this does is, I'm going to talk about this compliance a little bit later, where why the compliance takes an even bigger precedence than this the security. The governance process is a bigger tool because compliance encompasses everything. If I'm right, from your basic security to the complete perimeter security and the edge security, completely is covered by the compliance process, and not only from a from a static standpoint. It's a dynamic. Compliance is a dynamic process. It covers configuration management, vendor management, change management. It could also be deployment management. There's a lot of things that the compliance bodies cover, right? So that will help a lot. Once you do that, when you're ready to, if you address all those controls, then we can say for sure that you are secure. So in other words, if some of these tools, you can look at it, they will say they are compliant more than they are even secure. So that is the importance of compliance, right? DevSecOps integration, like I talked about, this is a critical piece where security is built into our process, where the tools can basically help us it's more like a guide, to say, okay, at every point you'll be warned, okay, do this correctly. Otherwise, for example, let's say if you don't do the TLS certification correctly, right? For example, your certificate is going to expire. There's a cert manager tool that can help you in the DevSecOps. And let's say you are doing a code revision process. You have a Sonar Cube that can help. You have a you're probably doing a CI/CD pipeline, but you don't know how to go about it. Your GitLab or GitHub helps there. And the Jira obviously helps in the requirement process to plug into as a head to all this, right? And then there's a log management, the log, Logz companies, the log management process in the DevSecOps. So there's a lot of tools that can help in the DevSecOps integration, which will help in the overall security posture of the networks. Okay, so edge security, we talked about edge security a bit. So there's a lot of analysis being done at the edge security, because it is not only there are three things that are very key here, like because the user definitely has to access the network, because he has to plug into it to get the best benefit out of it. And when I say the user, it could be the user's device. So the device security at the edge is critical, and then the network security is also critical, because what happens is, if the network at that level is not secure, like for example, if there's a mobile device that is accessing it and the network is not secure, you know who is passing what to which, right? For example, the network itself can pass a drone, malware into the cell phone, or vice versa, right? So we have to be very careful, the network part of it, and then finally the data part of it, because the reason we go to the edge is to collect voluminous amount of data, especially from IoT devices or blockchain networks. So what happens is, if you collect those data, your data has to be secure. You don't want to lose your data to malware attacks and other attacks, right? But the reason we need it, like I said, the reason we need is, we don't want a WAN to be doing all this. We need apportioning or traffics to particular isolated networks, where only the important part of the data can come to the central parts, where you don't want to do all your analysis the central itself. So you can do a lot of your work in a decentralized fashion. So that's why edge security will get prominence in the future. Like I said, the components are, the endpoint itself could be a threat. We have to secure it. The cloud security to protect that which is called you don't want to have the data exposed once you collect the data at the edge points, target edge points, and then the network security itself, because of the poor internet access or malicious access, enablement. So the policies here are going to be critical at the edge security locations, and also the isolation done in a particular way that the edge, let's say if there's a malware at the edge location, it cannot be propagated, because the isolation takes it away, from the main networks. Mobile device security, this goes in part and parcel with mobile devices. It doesn't have to be just mobile devices. It could be anything, right? IoT devices, where the access control of the IoT device or the mobile device, and also the infective nature, right, should be addressed, right? Because since nobody will be basically combing through the mobile device or the IoT device periodically, right? Unless you have a centralized monitoring tool in those devices deployed. Enterprises normally do that. It's critical that those cannot be the propagators of any worms into the network, right? The goal is to basically make sure that whichever device is logging in through the edge processes are going to be completely screened, and the routes, the people are going to log in through those mobile devices are completely checked through the ACL process, right? At the role level is another key here. So how does the device security work? Basically, policies, any clear established policies are going to be, and that's the only way to do this. And obviously, the least privileges and the right privileges have to be given to the right users. Finally, the correct MFAs, right? The multi-factor authentications that are needed. For example, you can have policies that even require like a couple of factors, or even 3 factors if it's a sensitive application, and then the networks that they are logging in from, right? You have to probably avoid people logging in from public Wi-Fi networks. So even if something were to happen, right, it can be avoided. So that is basically cutting down the probability, right? Device encryption is another feature which will definitely help in the future, because it could be a client-side encryption, it could be a client-to-server encryption. It could be also, there's another feature I missed here. Basically, you can also do the identification of the devices through the signature process, right? So basically that also can be done, or it could be like a device ID process also can through the device decentralized identifiers of the W3 orgs. So there's a lot of ways we can manage this. This is a growing field, by the way. Okay, so the cloud native tools are another feature which I want to dwell upon here. We talked about a lot the cloud native features. There are three areas primarily, right? Basically, the container security themselves and the security, of deployment, right? For example, if you're going to deploy the containers into the clusters, that is where you have to be very careful. For example, you have a lot of files where you might expose certain keys, and for example the etcd files, and there's a lot of cluster, the master and worker nodes. You have to carefully manage the pods, and the pod segregation, the service layers have to be done correctly. And last but not the third point is critical, right? Because the access to these networks through proxies, the key layer, because proxy is the one, if you don't configure correctly, it gives complete access to a stranger to your network, right? And you don't know how much ever security you have beyond a certain point. If the proxies are allowing the users without checking them, then we are in a serious trouble. So these tools will basically scan through your entire process and enable your and tell you where your assessment vulnerability points are, and areas where you can basically be strong, where you can strengthen your networks, especially from a cloud native tool standpoint. Okay, key security and compliance trends to watch. Basically, there's zero trust security, which I briefly talked about. Don't trust anybody, even your biggest CEOs and CIOs. Make them as an ordinary user, so that even if something were to happen, there will not be much liability or loss from a data or infrastructure standpoint. We talked about DevSecOps a lot. Security, we talked about it. The importance of container security it will be realized, I think, not 2000, probably the end of 2022, a lot of 2023, 24, where a lot of containers are going to come in. So that is where I think most of the action is going to be. Hybrid and multi-cloud. This is happening right now, right? Because a lot of us have gone to different clouds, multi-clouds, because of certain various reasons, or it could be cost, it could be flexibility, it could be ease of use. Hybrid environments are still there because we are still porting certain workloads from our on-prem networks to the cloud networks. Because hybrid to multi-cloud is going to be even more challenging, where you have to have clearly defined buffer zones, and your cloud security brokers or bastion firewalls have to really be hardened in such a way that you don't allow false access, even for contractors who can pose as a employee and come and do a lot of things, or even a hacker to come in as a contractor and do a lot of things. So it could be access control, it could be a lot of different steps you can take at the firewall level to do this. So how enterprise can prepare for 2022, right? So I'll quickly go, for want of time, I'll quickly go through this. Security assessment is the key, because any cloud operation you take, you have to assess the security, and this we do in SecureKloud as a religious, in a religious way, not only for ourselves but for others, customers who we adapt, who we go and service. Because once we assess, we know where are the weak points, what are the weak points. First, we do a manual assessment, then you can do a CSPM-based assessment. And security tool selection is key again. Once you know where are the vulnerability points for that particular enterprise, you have to select your tools appropriately, because you don't need all the tools. So you need only those tools that are necessary for yourself. And the identity security, zero trust, this I talked about. We have to be, and this technology is gaining a lot, right? Because we have to make sure that we don't trust anybody. Container technology adoption here, 70% will be running at least 2 production containers, from 20% now, from 2019. So that is going to be a huge jump. So we have to, every enterprise have to design for container technology security, right? And how to implement the containers, planning to implement them, because implementation is a key. Like I said, deployment is going to be the key, especially with the proxies that are going to handle the fronting part of the container. Process selection for DevSecOps. Before we even deploy to the container level, the DevSecOps can slash out all the security loopholes you have in the process, and it helps you to deploy in multiple places like Dev, QA, and then the prod. So you would have gone through the complete rigor before you even deploy in the prod. So the DevSecOps is going to be the key, and the service level security, because once you, like I said, if somebody can get to your services, then your security is very weak, right? Because that is where the action is going to be. So this quickly talk about a business case study. I don't want to name a customer here, but it's the top 100 automotive supplier. The reason we picked this case study is it's a very advanced technology case study where it's a green energy case study because they want to go green, but they are actually they have a technology that helps go electric in terms of automobiles. I don't want to go further in that. So what they want to do is they want to do analysis of their technology and hook their IoT devices to cloud, right? And monitor it 100%. So any security loopholes have to be monitored, and that is our solution helped them do that. And they've been a good customer for the past 3 years for us. We do, like I said, we do all the three processes for them. We do the past, the present, and the future, where we comb constantly the networks, and also we give suggestions depending on the patterns. And we obviously do the past analysis for them, and we do support for them, infrastructure security, troubleshooting, and monitoring. And also we do the assessment of the pen tests and vulnerability assessments every now and then with them, very frequent. The outcome, the customer is very satisfied, and I think that this engagement enabled us to understand what cloud security is, right? Really, and it really helped our architects and our cloud engineers to go to the next step with the cloud security. So these are some of the expertise that we have with us at SecureKloud. Like I said, we have a good cloud DevOps and SecOps practice, and we have big data, and we have good blockchain practice, and we also have a blockchain product actually. And then we have about 350 plus solutions we have deployed so far, and 350 global customers engaged. Premier consulting partner of AWS and Google and Azure. Basically we have cloud framework done, right? So basically that is a key thing here. We can address multi-cloud, hybrid cloud problems for any type of vendors. And we look at cloud as a integral part of compliance, like I said. How to do compliance-based cloud security from ground up, from the bootstrapping process, is what we address, and we tell our customers, and we follow that. Thank you. Thanks for your patience. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Raj. Thanks for the wonderful presentation. And I think it's a detailed walkthrough on cloud security and compliance trends. Now we have the panel discussion. Mr. Srinivas Mahankali is the moderator of the session. And the panelists are Mr. Subramanyam Gorti from Inti Consulting Services and Mr. Raj Srinivasaraghavan.
Yeah, shall I start? Yeah. Thank you, Raj. That was an amazing, presentation and about the various aspects of cloud security. I can see there is a question, from one of the participants about how you, take care of in the event, question. I will just read out the question. In the event of multi-cloud environments, how DevSecOps helps. So I think you have answered it. I think during your latest slides, when you talked about the security assessment and various tools that you can use, and the cloud providers are also providing, and the zero trust approach, all these things I think together, and your cloud security posture, all these things together will take care of a comprehensive protection in a multi-cloud environment scenario. So I think that's well taken care. Maybe I think that could further be addressed during our panel discussion. Yes. And I am extremely pleased to have Mr. Subramanyam sir also in the panel. Subramanyam sir has experienced more than 35 years in the industry, especially worked a lot in IBM cutting edge technology companies, and extensively in the cybersecurity and infrastructure management. And I would, maybe like him to talk a little bit about how the organizations today, need to take care of the various digital assets that they're, that they use. For example, all of us know that in the past 1 year, maybe in the past 1.5 years, COVID has actually resulted in most of the across the world digitalization accelerating, and the term COVID-led digital transformation is now a part and parcel of our day-to-day life. And everything, every aspects, as we speak today, we are participating in a conference which is being conducted online, and which earlier we were, we rarely used to do such things, right? And I was talking to somebody today who is talking about, in future, the workforce going to be digital. That means the companies are going, instead of manpower, they're going to have robots. There is a company which is engaging 1,000 robots, and all these 1,000 robots are sitting, or programs, software programs sitting in the cloud, undertaking various activities. So the human resource assets that organizations have in the future are going to be in the cloud, right? So that's where the cloud security is going to be, very, very critical to the survival of the organizations. Imagine, suppose if all your employees are hijacked, how can you perform? And if some malicious hacker, would get into this cloud, and then hijack all the block all the robots that are sitting on the cloud and doesn't let them perform, or hold them to ransom. How can an organization perform? Especially a lot of value, huge value at stake, and with more than 1,885% increase in ransomware attacks across the governments in 2021, and especially the healthcare demand has seen more than 755% increase in the ransomware attacks. So, so it's going to be extremely challenging in the future. So I would request, Subbu sir, to talk a little bit about the responsibility, increasing responsibility of the organizations to take care of the digital assets. Yeah. Welcome, Subbu.
Srini sir. Thank you, Srini sir. In fact, as the services like IPaaS, SaaS, PaaS, IaaS, PaaS, SaaS are provided by the cloud service providers. But each of the public cloud service provider points out that security in the cloud is a shared responsibility. They focus on the security of cloud infrastructure, which includes the compute, storage, and networking resources, as well as physical infrastructure. But they provide a partial solution. That's the way it is. And I would say it is your baby and you have to take care. This is the responsibility of the customer or the organization. Organization as the application owner being responsible for protecting applications, the operating system, supporting infrastructure, and other assets running in the cloud. Essentially, everything above the hypervisor or the equivalent layer is the responsibility of the application owner or the organization. So client also needs to do the security configurations. So for example, basic perimeter security is included with the cloud provider's infrastructure, but it is configured by the customer or the organization. So that's the way it is. So the onus lies on the organization more, and any security breach happens, the organization should be on the top of the things, and they should know and run the organization's day-to-day affairs based on the compliance based on the ISO 27001 standards.
Yeah, thank you so much. So Garu, yeah, actually it's true that organization, he's also very much responsible for all the assets and that are in the cloud, and especially because organization also is responsible for the various practices that are implemented within the organization, and also the choice of vendors, right? If you depend on vendors who are not capable of providing right type of services, then again that puts you at risk. I remember in 2017, in June 27, I was a CIO of a large, integrated logistic company, and at that point of time, Maersk, which was one of the digitally most advanced shipping companies in the world. It was attacked by NotPetya ransomware virus, and within a few minutes, it spread across system. And Maersk, was one of our customers, and and it also reached us. We started seeing systems shutting down and all that. And I was a CIO, so I was in the really hotspot, and we luckily we were able to respond very fast, and we had to shut down the system and totally cut off all the doubtful routes and everything, and finally managed to recover from that. And luckily we also put in place some of the best practices that would have in hindsight have helped us when in limiting the damage and recovering. Yeah, I think that way, as you said, it's a shared responsibility. Now the world has gone a long way. I think the past 5 years now, you see a ransomware attack has become a primary tool for malicious hackers, because so much of value is now stored in the cloud, and the value of the data that is stored is exponentially increasing. And with IoT devices, smart cities, smartphones being used, and so much of supply chain, healthcare devices, everything spewing data, and then that is getting stored in the cloud, and a lot of value is being unlocked by organizations. So a lot of data analytics is being done. So definitely ransomware attackers are are working overtime to knock out the systems of the organizations, and then take out all this value, right? So in terms of managing all these various threats, risks, and risks, especially in the cloud environment, what do you think is the way forward for cloud security? Maybe Raj could throw a bit of light on this.
Thank you, Srinivas. Thanks, Subramanyam sir, for your insights, and Srinivas for your insights. So it is really good to know, the different types of has happened in the past and how people have mitigated it or trying to mitigate, and where we are right now. So these are wonderful insights you have given into this. One important thing on to address your previous caller answers question on the how DevSecOps can help the multi-cloud environment, right? I'll probably address that question first. What happens is the multi-cloud makes it even more necessary for DevSecOps, right? Because we found out from our experience that that the operations that you take to deploy an application in one cloud, for example Azure, is totally different from how you do it in GCP or AWS, because there's a lot of different. They might look similar, in terms of resources or asset deployments, but the process you take to get there, for example, their internal SDKs or the APIs and any security loopholes, they would have been addressed differently in this cloud. So if you do not take care of that in the DevSecOps CI/CD pipeline itself, then you will find a lot of catching up to do during the actual production deployment. So I would say, if it's a multi-cloud project that we are trying to deploy, or if it's an infrastructure multi-cloud project that we are trying to do, DevSecOps is the way to go, right? Because the compounding problem can easily get addressed in the CI/CD pipeline process. So that is an answer for that. So another question is about GDPR compliance, which I think we'll address later. To answer the way to go for cloud security, right? Like I said, definitely the cloud assessment security assessment is a must for all companies, right? Because as we see, the threats can happen in any from anywhere. It could be an internal threat, external threat. It could be a threat that we don't even know happening. It could be even a pen drive insertion into a laptop, which is connected to a cloud VDI environment. So there's and then the VDI is being not safe or secure. The worm could have uploaded itself through a backgate process. So you don't know where it is going to come from. It could be a innocent user of your organization who is trying to do something with legally, right? He just wants to use a file from his pen drive from another next person, right? To do something. That is the level we have to go to see, how can we have controls defined. So the way forward is to have an assessment And definitely we need to have one of the CSPM tools, right? Any enterprise, if they can afford, there's a lot of good tools out there available for low cost. There's also open source tools available. We can use them to at least have a good assessment and as a day-to-day monitoring feature also in it. And then the pattern recognition for the future. These definitely are the keys going forward, I would say, at least for the next 2 years. And then comes the container security. By 2023, in a couple of years from now, I'm sure, because the containers offer a lot of flexibility for people, right? First of all, in one virtualization instance, you can run 10 to 15 containers. Whereas right now you can run only one instance, for a particular application. So your ROI is 15 times increase. Even at least for that one particular reason, containers are going to be big, and container security obviously will be big in the next 2 years. So the container security and the CSPM processes are the way to go for the future, according to me, Srinivas.
Yeah, thank you very much actually for for enlightening on some of the key trends that are currently we can see happening around. And but what is happening is also, apart from the security of all the organizational systems and everything, there's also the requirement about the being in line with the regulations and compliance, etc., with respect to the data privacy and protection. And so a lot of governments have now started getting more and more vigilant and very active in terms of regulating this and trying to protect all the consumer citizens across the world, and to ensure that their privacy is not violated by the organizations, not only by them taking some actions to violate, but and also with respect to the threats that malicious hackers pose in terms of running away with the data, hacking into the systems and taking out the data. So in all these to manage all these things, I think we need to be organizations need to be very proactive, and they need to take a lot of steps in line with the cloud security posture, also what you talked about. I think I would request Subbu to talk a little bit about how organizations can prepare or what are the regulations and related activities that they should do to prepare themselves in this dynamic and very challenging scenario that is ahead of us.
The threat posture is evolving day by day, and the cyber criminals are using sophisticated threats and vulnerabilities involving in migrating to the cloud are ever evolving. So cloud environments experience the same threats as the conventional data center. So the threat picture is the same, and there is no change at all. So the cloud computing runs software, and software has vulnerabilities. Criminals try to exploit those vulnerabilities. So say, for example, if the critical the credentials are stolen, then the attacker will have access to users information and sensitive information, and as well as target the organization's digital assets. The attacker could leverage cloud computing resources to target the organization's administrative users and other organizations as well. So there is increased threat. So accordingly, the staff preparedness is required, and migrating to the cloud can introduce complexity into IT operations. Managing, integrating, and operating in cloud may require the existing IT staff's skill set. They need to learn a new model, so they are used to a particular kind of environment, and cloud is different. IT staff must have the capacity and skill level to manage, integrate, maintain, and maintain the migration of the assets and data to the cloud, in addition to the current responsibilities for the on-premise IT. So key management encryption services become more complex in the cloud. These are all the compliances, the services, techniques, tools, etc. Available to log and monitor cloud services. Typically, they vary. Multiple cloud service providers for multiple clouds, further increasing the complexity. So it is a case of skill set. Completely, they have to upskill. There may be also, emergent threats and risks in hybrid cloud implementations due to, technology, policies, implementation methods, etc., which add more complexity. So this complexity leads to an increased potential for security gaps in the organization's cloud and on-premise implementations. So again, as in the presentation, Raj sir has mentioned, so insiders threat, insiders abuse, so such as staff or admin of the organization who abuse their authorized access to organizations, network systems, data, they are uniquely positioned to cause damage or steal information. So then if stored data is lost, data stored in the cloud can be lost for various reasons other than the malicious attacks. So accidental deletion of data by the cloud service provider, or any other issue such as the calamity, fire, outbreak of fire, earthquake, or these are the kind of things where this could happen. So the burden of avoiding data loss, or DLP, as Raj sir has mentioned, data loss prevention has to be ensured. So data loss does not fall solely on the provider's shoulders. Again, I would repeat, it is the responsibility of the organization. So if the cloud service provider outsources parts of its infrastructure operations or maintenance to third parties, it could also so happen that there is outsourcing. So the requirement that the cloud service provider is contracted to provide with an organization, the organization needs to evaluate how the service provider enforces the compliance here. These are the critical things. Then that is why it is all the more required to do the sufficient due diligence before migrating to the cloud, which increases the cybersecurity risk. Organizations migrating to the cloud often perform insufficient due diligence. They are normally in a hurry, so because there are advantages like efficiency, cost reduction, so on and so forth. So they try to migrate to the cloud in a hurried manner. They move the data to the cloud without understanding the full scope of doing so. The security measures used by the cloud service providers and their responsibility to provide security measures, all these things have to be examined before taking a final call. So these are the complexities from the compliance standpoint.
Yeah, thank you very much, Subbu sir. That is very enlightening. Actually, organizations have to, ensure that they are compliant to various, standards and regulatory requirements which have been put in place to safeguard, safeguard themselves against the malicious hackers or attackers, to keep them at bay. So if somebody's organization should consciously try to, there have been number of standards like ISO 27001, 20000, 27017, 2018, number of certifications which the clients also demand today, and the standards also exist. And I find that a lot of organizations actually, they have been very lax in that, so regularly, updating their adherence to these various standards, or renewing their certificates. And only when some attack happens and they're faced with big loss, that's when they wake up and say, oh, we are not put in place, we have been lax about all these things. And Raj sir, what do you think is the importance of adhering to the standards? Like you would be witnessing most of the time, the clients actually always demand to see whether you are compliant to these various standards or not before choosing you as a customer. So do you think there is a significant relation between the compliance and the ability to defend yourself against the organization against malicious hackers?
Yes, absolutely, Srinivas sir. So what we see is like I briefly told in the talk, even before security, right? Compliance is the key, right? Now, a lot of customers they come to us and say, how can you make sure that we can be compliant? Let's say if you are audited tomorrow, by any authority, right? Like for example, it could be GDPR. We have a question about GDPR. Or it could be SOC or high trust. How do we make sure that we are compliant even before we start a project? That we want to make sure compliance is adhered upon. In fact, there is a lot of real world evidence projects that we have done in the past, especially in the last couple of years after the pandemic broke out, where compliance has been insisted upon as the number 1 or 2 priority for the customer, right? So where this leads to, why they become so important, like Subbu sir said, compliance helps us to be confident that our network is going to be good, because because if you look at the compliance of either ISO or SANS or any of the, or SOC2 or PCI, what they tell is they go beyond what is required. So in other words, if we do let's say 100 controls out of all this, right? You are more than secure, is what I would say. You are 30% more than secure, right? Because they address every nook and corner of what is required for security, right? And in every aspect, not just from one angle, not just from the access angle. It could be an identity angle, it could be a port angle, it could be a deployment angle, it could be an application development angle. So they cover from every angle, especially the some of the advanced standards. So when we do this, actually, in fact, second nature. Like when you even do customer for a project for a customer who does not know what compliance is, it automatically comes to us. That if we do this, they don't have to worry about anything in the future. So if this attitude is adopted by anybody, any cloud service contractor who is going to do this, or what will happen is, in the long run, all these threats will slowly reduce, either external or internal threats. They will slowly reduce, because there's no way anybody can get into it. At least they have to try so much hard, right? So I think compliance, adherence to compliance, even though it's a tedious or a voluminous process, and and it should not be only be done at the audited time, right? It should be done 365 days a year. It should be there should be an employee, or who should be dedicated for this, in every organization, to make sure that the compliance is done correctly, and detailed audited notes are kept, so that we will know what patterns were followed. So I think compliance is the key, I would say, going forward. Apart from the 2 things that I talked about, CSPM and containers, adherence to compliance, I think, will solve a lot of issues in probably 5 to 10 years from now, I would say.
Yeah, thank you very much, Rasan. Actually, yeah, I think you said it very well, that everyone should be involved in securing an organizational the networks and systems and everything, because in the case of especially the NotPetya virus, one small mistake done by one employee innocently by opening one file which he didn't understand from where it came from, actually it rapidly escalated everywhere and shut down the company's networks, and also affected the customers, right? So so it's not only the responsibility of CIO or CISO or something, but it is the responsibility of everybody, and they also should be involved. So Subbu sir, what do you think will be the role of CIO and CISO in not only doing their jobs well and being expert in security, but how they can involve all the employees as well in this exercise?
Well, here, I'd like to talk about the ISO 27001 based, standard-based framework. The clause 5 requires, there are about 18 clauses, and 4 to 8 are mandatory as far as the standard is concerned. So clause 5 requires commitment by top management. Having said that, top management referring to the executive levels of the management, CEO, CIO, supported by CISO, to achieve the objectives of information security management system. Key elements of information security management system are the risk assessment, documented control and processes, security awareness, training, and competencies. So here the team, the top management has to ensure that there is a policy in place. First of all, a team has to be identified with the competencies and roles and responsibilities. Then policy needs to be designed, keeping in mind the business objectives of the organization, and then the implementation. After implementation, I would like to briefly touch upon that. There are tools, technology, equipment which includes firewalls, antivirus, malware, scanners, and network security tools, logging and security monitoring tools. So these are all the things they have to take into account. So people, process, and technology, and the policy ISMS has to be implemented in the organization. Then audit is required to be done after the implementation to know, because audit gives the feedback. What all are the things in conformance to the ISO 27000 requirements, and what all are the gaps, and how those gaps to be addressed, and this is the first party audit. So as custodians of sensitive customer information, the CISO plays a major role in keeping the data in cloud safe, in the cloud safe and secure. More than anyone else in the organization, the CISO should have a clear sight into the risks that can impact the integrity, confidentiality, and privacy of sensitive information. So it is imperative that they should be part of the core team discussions. So these are all the things they decided in the core team, and the management review takes place. Management review. Management team comprises, apart from the top management, admin, HR. So the review takes place, and the various aspects of the audits are discussed. Then the action plan is finalized and implemented. So CSO can add value. CISO can add value to the discussion by highlighting cybersecurity risks in the context of the business, by correlating IT assets and their residual risk, etc. So maintaining controls in the cloud, from the cloud perspective. When it comes to the cloud, many organizations tend to focus on costs rather than the control. So I would like to tell that ISMS is not an expenditure, it is an investment. So cost becomes secondary. So without effective controls, it is only a matter of time before a serious cybersecurity incident takes place. So the CISO has to ensure that sufficient controls uh, uh, around cloud-based data segregation, data security, and infrastructure security are incorporated into the cloud deployments. Uh, then there should be proper monitoring mechanism to is also essential to check the controls that are working uh, as expected. So in business, the stakeholders are to make fully informed decisions. They need to be aware of the critical IT risks and control in the cloud. CISO can help ensure that these insights are delivered in a timely manner. So these are all the expectations of a CEO from the CISO and CIO. Of course, the system should be built to hand all IT risk and compliance reporting related requirements, as well as their correlation with business operations. What is the business objective? It should be in sync with that. So robust analytics and dashboards can also be is invaluable in the enterprise transformation and compliance requirement. So ensuring a business continuity plan, which is very important from the business point of view. So this is also the expectation of the CEO. One of the biggest challenges the CISO faces is to detect the RPO and RTO. So detect and respond to cyber attack or other IT disruptions as quickly as possible, so that the impact is minimal. With cloud-based infrastructure, quick incident response is very critical. So these are all the kind of expectations as far as the CEO is concerned from this team of CIO and CISO.
Thank you very much, Subbu sir. I think you also, summarized very well, today's discussion about the various facets of cybersecurity that we talked about, especially with the growing challenges of digitization and the increased adoption of cloud. So it is very important that all organizations, especially, completely identify their business critical applications and keep rehearsing their incident response, playbooks. You talked about, ability to respond in case of, any such attacks happening. So you should proactively imagine that the attacks are there. Some malicious hacker is always there, lurking in the corner, waiting, to find you when your guard is down, and then attack you. So you should keep proactively taking steps to evaluate yourself and following or setting up all the standards, not just policy on paper, but they should implement all these things and be always on the run. If you do that, then there will be a lot of, as you said, the CEO and CIO, CXO, all CXOs, they will demonstrate their accountability, and then the security becomes a benefit, because security, as you said, it's not a expense, it is an investment, and it is a differentiator. And if you are able to provide excellent cybersecurity, to all your customers, to yourself, to employees, to all your whatever operations you're doing, you are able to differentiate yourself. And one mistake could not only, lead to damaging the reputation, but also taking away, a lot of your customers. And also subject you to a lot of fines and other regulatory punishments. So focusing heavily on cybersecurity and putting in place a bulletproof system will also lead to exponential growth in the today's world of the COVID-led digital transformation. And as Raj and you have rightly captured, cybersecurity is everyone's responsibility. It's a great teamwork. of employees, of vendors, of the organizations, of the various providers of tools and cloud services and everything. So it's a I think the importance for this is only increasing exponentially by the day. And I hope you're able to throw some light on all these things. Thank you. And over to you, Raj.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Srinivas.
Thank you.
So thank you, everyone. Thank you, Raj Srinivasaraghavan. Thank you, Subramanyam Gorti, and thank you, Srinivas Mahankali, for moderating the session as well. I think we all have learned some great insights about cloud security, its compliance, cyber security, and some real-life case studies too. So I would also like to thank each and everyone who made it possible for this webinar. And so we do have a breakout session after this. In case if you have any questions that are related to cloud security and compliance, you can reach out to this contact details. And if you have any questions that are related to cloud adoption, you can actually join this post-event networking session. So a breakout link will be given in the chat section. You can join there. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.